My name is Jonathan James, and it's great to see you today. Thanks so much for joining me for this podcast. I want to say a big thank you to our episode sponsor, Kedrion Biopharma, who's sponsored a lot of our episodes recently, and we really appreciate their partnership. Today, I am joined by a really special guest and my friend, Rodney Dalrymple. It is great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us for the Hope Podcast today.
Oh, man, it's an honor, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. You know, Rodney, your story is just so unique and in-depth and so many different ways that we're going to talk about today. I know that there's a lot of things that you are passionate about supporting the community, educating people in the community, and we'll get to a lot of those things. But a lot of people who may not have heard your story before wonder, man, who is this guy, Rodney? So Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're from, how you're affected by hemophilia, and what you're passionate about?
Well, my name is Rodney Dalrymple, and I'm from Mississippi. And I was diagnosed with hemophilia when I was 7 months old, and been dealing with it all my life. And we have a pretty big family. And out of 9 girls, my mom was the only carrier, as we know of. I mean, you know, a couple aunties had just girls.
Yeah.
Then I had an auntie that had 3 boys, and all of them were fine. And my mom, oldest brother, he died when he was 3 years old. He bit his tongue and bled to death.
Oh.
So that was the first sign of hemophilia in our family. And then on down, my mom had another brother that was A-OK. So, I mean, so it kind of, but just this is my theory. This is my theory now. My mom was born right after my grandmother lost her 3-year-old. So when my grandmother lost her 3-year-old, my mama was actually in her womb. She didn't know that she was pregnant. So this is my theory. My uncle had to live on. So I felt like out of all of the big people in our family, me and my brother was the only 2 that ended up with hemophilia. So I like to say that he lives through us.
Wow.
That's just my theory.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's interesting because how old are you now, by the way?
I'm 43. I just turned 43 March the 2nd.
Congratulations. That's
All
awesome,
praises
man.
to the Most High. Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. And a lot of folks, in our age group, because we're about the same age, and so there was people that were just a few years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years older than us that there was just really almost no treatment available.
Right.
And of course, then people were exposed to the HIV crisis, which was a real difficult season. But I think that it's really just in our lifetime that we've seen really big advancements take place to where you could survive hemophilia. So
I said that my uncle was the first sign of hemophilia, which he was in that time period. But as me and my brother got once we got here, whatever, as we got older, we started searching, wanting to find out where did this blood disorder come from. So after digging, and talking to older relatives or whatever, they told me that my grandmother had her father. He was in the Army, and one of the biggest tornadoes in the world came through Tupelo, Mississippi. And back in, don't quote me on the date, but it's one of the top 5.
Wow.
That came through Tupelo. But anyways, my great-grandmother had went to Tupelo to tell my great-granddaddy that he was finna be a father, which was my grandmother. But when she got back to Corinth, Mississippi, the tornado had came through Tupelo, Mississippi. He got killed in the tornado. So I dug up his medical records and his death certificate, and it showed that he had hemophilia. I was like, wow. So I'm like, so this is where it comes. See, we always thought it was just my uncle, which was 3 years old, that passed. But come to find out, my grandmother was always a carrier.
Wow.
Because of her dad that she never got to meet because he died in a tornado. Yeah.
That's crazy. And did he die?
He died
in
from
the tornado, or did he die
he died,
as a result of injuries?
Results of injuries. On the autopsy, it had contusions and abrasions.
So it was several days after the
several days, yeah.
Probably just couldn't heal.
Right.
Wow.
See, back then they didn't know what it was, or nor did they they didn't have any treatment for it back then. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. My grandmother told us of a story, and we had done all of the genetic testing and, looking through our family tree and all of that stuff too. And, in my case, there was never an occurrence of another person in my family that had had it at the
Right.
time. My grandmother, towards the end of her life, she started talking about different people in the family. And one of the things that she told us a story. She had an uncle that actually had passed away when he was real young. He was about 3 to 5 years old.
Right.
And the story was that he had gone out, he was swinging on the swing set in the backyard, and they had one of those old rope swings that had the wooden plank for the seat.
Right.
And so they said that he was out there swinging on it. And the only thing they knew that happened was he had fallen off the swing, and the swing came back and bumped him in the head.
Right, man.
And then they said that he went and he laid down and he had a bad headache, and he laid down and he didn't wake up.
Right.
And so at his age, that should not have been, the case, especially unless it was just an extreme, injury, but they don't think it was. And so, most likely it was probably, hemophilia, but we didn't even know about that story until the very tail end of my grandmother's life. She just started remembering all these other stories that she probably didn't remember either until in there, so you and I are like two miracles sitting in the same room, man.
Right.
Like,
Right.
next thing is lightning strikes. And that's the only thing might be more common than the two hemophiliacs sitting here about the same age. So
Man.
that's great. Well, tell us a little bit about your story. So you get diagnosed at an early age, about 7 months old. You're having trouble. You get diagnosed. You find out. And when do you start getting on treatment? It was pretty close after that, or did it take some time?
I'm not sure exactly when, because I was so
You don't
young.
remember? You were 8 months old. Come on.
But I will say this though. Like, I know when I was like 6 or 7, I was infusing because my mom was infusing me. I remember that.
Yeah.
And like, it was the opposite. Like, my brother, he rarely had joint bleeds. He got to do everything that I didn't get to do. It's like I had the rough end of the stick, like with knee bleeds, ankle bleeds, elbow bleeds.
Wow.
And the only bleeds he would have is a nosebleed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's like, now it's reversed. It's like I rarely have bleeds now. It's like now he's older, which he's 5 years older than me. It's like now he's having all the bleeds and all this. But I would say probably 5 or 6 years old.
Wow. So
Somewhere in there. Might have been younger than that. I can't remember, but I do know that around 7 or 8 I was infusing. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you started getting these infusions, did it seem to help right away? Did it seem to just...
Nah, because I can remember, like, let's say, for instance, I would get a bleed on a Friday. That bleed would linger, man. I'm telling you, dude, like, to by like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Wow.
It just was just that bad, But
Wow.
yeah.
So it would go on like for a little while, but
Right.
But at what point did you start to realize that because you ended up, if I'm not mistaken, with an inhibitor, and that was something that really began to be a real problem because the medication wasn't working at all like it should, right?
So see, that kind of make me and bring me back to the thought to like, is that the reason why my bleeds was lingering? Like, did I develop an inhibitor at an early age? Because that I think was the early stage set of my joint damage, because like the bleed will linger, and we all know that the longer her bleed is not under control, it does
Causes more damage.
Right, causes more damage or whatever. So I think that's why I had a lot of joint damage because of that.
You had because of the inhibitor, and you just didn't know.
Just didn't know it. Yeah.
Now, at some point, you started using a bypassing agent, right?
Oh yeah.
And so you took that for a long time.
Right. And things got better. It got a lot better then. Yeah.
But you still had a lot of joint damage.
Oh yeah.
Really struggled.
Oh yeah. No doubt.
You guys live in kind of a rural community, so how was that in terms of like you getting to a specialized treatment center? Were you able to get the treatment you needed? Was it difficult to get to the hospital?
I had a phenomenal hematologist growing up, and her name was Dr. Marion Dugdale from UT in Tennessee. Everybody knows her.
Wow.
And she pretty much took care of me up until I was grown. I mean, like
Wow.
grown.
Right.
So she was in Memphis. So that's like a hour and 45-minute drive, like,
Right. Yeah.
But like if something major happened, like I recall one time, I was at Vacation Bible School at church, and I was out there playing, and a guy ran into me by accident, and I bit my tongue real bad, and it wouldn't stop bleeding. So I went home, I infused, and laid down. Woke up the next morning, pillow covered with blood.
Oh.
It just wouldn't clot. Like, I mean, it just was just bleeding. So finally, my mom was like, "Look, we got to take you to the doctor, because it's not clotting."
Right.
So when we got to the little local hospital where I stay, and they called to Memphis, and Memphis told them to rush me over there. So when I got there, they told my mom if I had been like 8 or 10 minutes later, I would have bled to death. That's just how much blood I had lost over the middle of the night. Because, I mean, I was so weak. Like, I'm talking about I was pale looking, and this just from a tongue bite.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, man, I got some horror stories, man. I'm talking about bad horror stories. But, I mean, as I got older, I mean, things just, got better.
You found a rhythm and a routine.
Right.
Yeah. Now, at some point, you started using a plasma-derived product, and in that part of the journey, you were able to actually tolerize with your inhibitor, and so
Right.
that's a pretty big landmark as well. So tell me a little bit about making that change and trying to figure out the right. How did that come about?
Well, I would like to say that my hematologist suggested it, I think. And then with a lot of praying too, because, like, I mean, to be honest, I mean, it's gonna sound funny, but this is the God honest truth. Like, I would go and get my checkup, and my titer would be still kind of high, showing that I had an inhibitor.
Yeah.
So I was needing knee surgery, and I went to the my mom had been praying and stuff about me having the surgery, because she was skeptical about me having a knee surgery, because in 2000 I was part of a study where they needed participants to do a surgery and try this product,
Okay.
a bypassing product.
Okay.
And I needed the surgery because there wasn't nobody to do the surgery.
Right.
And so the guy was like, well, hey, I need a participant, you need a surgery. So we'll do it. So
Sounds like a deal.
yeah, so we set it up, and they flew me out to Minnesota at the Mayo Clinic.
Okay.
And during that surgery, they lost me twice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So yeah.
From complications of the surgery or from bleeding?
From bleeding.
Bleeding. Wow.
Yeah. Because, like, it didn't work as the way they had planned and whatever. So, I mean, they had to go back and retweak that product. And that product, it actually became one of the best products, bypassing products.
Wow.
Yeah.
But they still were trying to work out the kinks, since
Right.
they didn't know. They were probably being really conservative in the surgery, and then they needed to be more aggressive.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh
But
my
yeah,
gosh.
but for as like the tolerization, I went to my treatment center to a regular appointment, and it showed undetected. So they wanted to do some more blood work, because that's not possible.
Right.
And so they did it again, and it's undetected. So I'm like, in my mind, it's undetected. We got to strike while the iron is hot. I need this knee surgery. So that's when I got on the phone, and I got the call in trying to find, people to do my knee surgery. I went to North Carolina to Chapel Hill. They had scheduled me a surgery date, but the insurance didn't work out. Okay, so then I tried Tulane. And then when I tried Tulane, everything worked out.
Wow.
And I met up with Dr. Lessinger.
Yeah.
And all those guys. And Dr. Sanchez was my orthopedic, and he did my knee surgery.
Wow.
Everything went fine. That was in 2013, I think, when I had my right knee done.
Wow.
And I've been with Tulane ever since.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, finding the right team of people is so critical, and I always encourage people to just keep looking until you find the right people, because that care is so important. And the fact that you tolerized and you were able to get really over that high titer level is something that's a big hurdle that a lot of folks, have not had the luxury of being able to figure out. But it's interesting that, do you think that the going back to a plasma derived product played a role in that tolerization?
I would like to say it did.
Yeah.
I would like to say it did because I mean, a lot of people was trying to get me to do other products, recombinant, and stuff like that, and I was like, nah.
Yeah. Now, when you started looking at a plasma derived product, did that give you any concerns about safety and efficacy? I mean,
It did.
we have such a history in the community. Everybody thinks about it.
It really did, but to be honest, Jonathan, that's where my faith came in at. And I was like, hey, the way I look at things, like before I had my knee surgery, I told the team that was the anesthesia team and everybody that was in there, I asked them all, did they believe in God? I said, I don't want to know your religion. I just want to know, do you believe in God, a higher power? And they was like, yeah. I said, okay. I said, well, we can do the surgery. I said, but because if there's one in here that didn't, either you gonna have to leave the room or I'm leaving the room. So the doctor was like, wow, nobody never said that. I was like, I'm just being honest. I need everybody on board,
Wow.
because, and I told my doctor, I said, it's like this. If I make it through the surgery, I win. If I don't make it through the surgery, I still win. So I can't lose. He was like, wow, man. I was like, hey, it's a win-win with me.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Considering what we done been through all our life, Right.
There's a certain measure of all of this that I think trust is innate in what we walk through, is that you can know all of, there's a fine balance between researching, trying to get the best information that you possibly can. And then there's a point where you have to trust something or someone. And that at some point we're either trusting the FDA or we're trusting our doctors or we're trusting some, drug manufacturer, we're trusting somebody,
Right.
And I'm like you, man, I want to keep my trust in the Lord. I want to keep my trust in something much higher than man itself. And so,
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's like, how can I put it? It's like a script. It's already wrote. We just going through the motions, Because in the word, I don't want to bring it, but in the word, he said he created the end from the beginning.
That's right.
So
he's the Alpha and Omega.
Right. So I like to look at it like it's already been predestined.
Come on.
All we got to do is just stay on track and walk it out.
Wow. I love that.
Just walk it out.
I love that.
And sometimes we might get off track, but just man fell 7 times, he got back up.
Yeah. There's a verse that says that he knows every single hair on your head.
Yes, sir.
He knows every hair on your head. He knows the
beginning,
the end, and all the in between. I think that's the thing about life, is that we get an opportunity to really, our really only role is to trust, and then just to walk it out, and we just get to enjoy. I mean, I think his greater purpose for all of us in this is that we would enjoy our journey, that we would enjoy our life with him and trust him in the middle of it and get to know him as much as we can on this side of it. And I have to say, that is the definition of faith, right? Being able to walk forward without knowing all the facts. You're walking forward with the best information you have, but none of us really can know factually every single intricacy possible.
It's just like that, like Hebrews 11:1.
Come on.
Faith is the substance of things hoped for.
Yes.
But the evidence of things not seen, right? So, but I like to look at it like hemophiliacs, like, and I don't want nobody that's not a hemophiliac to get offended, but I like to feel like we're more closer to God, because at the end of the day, when we're hurting, factor's not working, pain med's not working, who else do you have to rely on? I mean, you at his mercy.
It's true.
You know what I'm saying? So
true.
I feel like if it wasn't for me having hemophilia, I honestly don't think I would be here, because hemophilia have kept me from a lot of things, and it has kept me with a closer walk with him. Now, I hadn't been good all my life, but I hadn't been bad as I probably could have been if I didn't have hemophilia.
Well, the risks that you take.
Right.
Sometimes when you know you've got purpose to your life,
Right.
and even better than that, when you have purpose to your pain,
Right.
you see destiny in something, and you can sort of go and say, wait a minute, there's something bigger at work here than just me.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm held because of something bigger than me, then maybe I can depend on that, and I need to lean into it too. I think sometimes we all fight against it. It's like, it's typical. Rebellion is natural for every teenager and every young adult. We're all but at the end of the day, if we can lean into the good things that the Lord set before us, then all of a sudden we can enjoy it a little more. We can walk into that and have peace and patience and kindness and goodness and self-control.
I remember when I used to go to the inhibitor summits, a lot of the parents would want to pick my brain. They were like, I need you to talk to my son. I need you to talk to my son. This parent pulling me over here. This parent pulling me over here. And I remember just talking to the little youngsters, telling them, hey, if I had somebody like me to tell me, like I'm telling you all, I would have did a lot of things a lot differently.
Yeah.
Preserve your joints.
Yeah.
Take your factor. When you have an injury, don't wait to see what it's gonna do. Go ahead, because I was one of those type. I want to wait and see.
Yeah.
Oh, it ain't gonna be that bad. I ain't gonna infuse. Then it turned out to be a bad knee bleed or whatever. And the micro bleeds was the ones that was getting me, because it was the bleeds that I didn't know, that I didn't see, and I kept overdoing it. And that's what I would like to preach to the younger generations. But to be honest, though, Jonathan, if we had the medicines that they have now, man, these kids, man, I'll be like, so you really got hemophilia? I don't believe you. Show me your paperwork. I don't believe you. Because, we could tell one another, like, if it's like, it's funny now, but like, an older guy told me, he said, you can tell a hemophiliac when you reach to shake his hand, with the extension of his arm, or it's something that's gonna give you a telltale something, but these kids now, man, you can't tell.
Yeah.
You can put them beside somebody normal and you wouldn't be able to pick them out.
Well, to your point, I worry about that a little bit because, I feel like that sometimes the lessons that you and I had to learn at, age 10, 11, right, where, to your point about treating those things that instead of just waiting and see how it go, I think a lot of times when you've lived on Profi your whole life, what we're finding is a lot of kids are in college and they're just going and saying, well, I don't really need that. I don't really have that. I don't know. My mom made me take that. I don't know.
Right.
They themselves don't believe it sometimes. And what happens is they'll let something fester and then they'll start, really having a problem, and then micro bleeds, what have you,
Right,
breakthrough bleeds, and they don't really identify it right away. And sometimes those little bleeds that you just allow fester and you say, well, it's probably just your arthritis. You have probably some joint pain because you have hemophilia. They blow that stuff off, and all the while it's in there festering and causing joint damage. And you and I look at that and go, oh my gosh, if we could just live a day without joint damage, like,
right,
amazing. But in reality, though, that's one of the things I'm really concerned about with this generation now is how do you really help them keep their joints that are currently healthy? How do you keep them to preserve that healthy joint and not kind of push off the, it's just a little inflammation. It's just a little.
I think if you put people like me and you in front of them and show them, because see, it's a difference between telling somebody versus them seeing it.
You're right.
So I think like if we had like a team of mentors that just went around and just advocated to the youth, and let them see our scars, let them see our joint damage, just let them see it, who we really are.
Yeah.
And I think that would not just scare them, but it'll make them stop and think, I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
Because, when you got a 6-year-old like I have, some days it's hard to tell my 6-year-old little girl that, daddy can't, play with you. And then to hear her say, daddy, I wish you could run with me. Stuff like that. Mentally, you have to be a strong person mentally to to accept that and not let it get to you.
That's so true.
Because see, a weak-minded person, they'll take that and let it fester. And then they'll get to beating themselves down, and then that's when depression will sit in and all this and that. But what I do, I find other things that I can do with her and make it fun, you know.
That's so good. It's so important. I've talked about that some, about how, you know, my kids playing doctor when they were little looked a lot different than it probably does for my friends that don't have hemophilia. You know, they'd get out the doctor kit and they go, Daddy, do you need an infusion? You know, Daddy, you know, I'd see my daughter over there giving my little, you know, my son a shot, you know, in their doctor kit and going, do you have a bleed? You know, They don't have hemophilia, baby. I mean, like, you know, it's just different, you know. And, but, you know, even all of those little things, like you said, they can really wear on you as a parent, as an adult. And man, just really your heart breaks. And my wife and I have talked about this a lot, about how we just wish, you know, oh my gosh, like I just wish with all my heart that I could, you know, give them a life maybe without me having the limitations that I've had.
Man.
But my wife has been such an encouragement to me, because she continues to say, you know, but the key thing that you have to stay focused on is that they wouldn't have a life if it wasn't for you. And the value that you bring. You said it earlier about not sure that we would be alive if we didn't have hemophilia. I kind of feel that same way. I think sometimes the value that we've learned a lot of other mature lessons in life faster than maybe some of our own peers have that have a bleeding disorder, largely because we've been forced to face some mature battles and mature challenges like pain and mental health and depression and things like that. Maybe some of our peers haven't had to face in the same way. And so for that reason, we have actually some value and tools that we bring to something that we're, in some ways, we're more mature because of the battles we faced, that we can also offer that to our kids too.
Products such as Coate are derived from human plasma and adhere to strict safety protocols. In this video, we'll explain the manufacturing process for Coate. First, the plasma is collected. This is done at FDA-licensed donation centers with carefully screened healthy donors. Only plasma collected in the U.S. can be used to manufacture products available in the U.S. The next step is viral testing in two different ways. First is serology. Serology can detect markers that indicate whether a donor has been in contact with a virus that could be passed on to others. Next is NAT, or nucleic acid amplification testing. This is a very sensitive test that can detect very low levels of viruses in plasma. NAT is so sensitive it is like finding a needle in a haystack. Only plasma that is virus-free is used in manufacturing. Thousands of plasma donations are combined into a large pool, and then a second round of NAT testing is done. Fractionation is the next step. This separates all of the different proteins in the plasma until only the protein you want, in this case, factor VIII, can be collected. Finally, the collected factor VIII is treated with solvent and detergent, which is like a chemical wash. The solvent and detergent are removed. And then the factor VIII is treated with dry heat for 72 hours. These two steps work to inactivate or eliminate any viruses that may remain. There have been 0 documented cases of viral transmission associated with Coate's current manufacturing process. It's important to keep in mind that because Coate is made from human blood, it carries a risk of transmitting infectious agents, such as viruses, the agent of the variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or unknown infectious agents. Kedrion is a proud manufacturer of plasma-derived products that keep life flowing. We want to thank all of our donors for their gift of life-saving plasma.
When I was young, it would be parties that I didn't get to go to because I was at home nursing a knee bleed or elbow bleed, you know. And like, I don't know if this happened to you, but like when I was younger, I did a lot of stuff just to fit in, to not be treated different.
Yeah.
And, you know, like playing basketball, playing full contact football, you know, and When I was younger, man, I could run. I'm talking about, man, I could get down. But yeah.
All right, there.
But, my mom, she would come in there and she would be like, was it worth it?
Mm.
And I would be crying because I'm hurting bad. And I was in the midst of my tears crying. I'll say, yes, ma'am. She was like, how? I said, but to fit in, to not be dealt differently, not put in a bubble or not singled out, yeah, it was worth it to me, but now that I look back at life, I'm like, I would have probably said, hey, it ain't worth it. I'm trying to save my joints, dude. Y'all can have that. But I mean, in order to know something, you got to go through something. That's why I say that us being in front of the younger people, we can tell them, because I know a lot of them probably do that to fit in, and it's not worth it.
My dad had a philosophy that I thought was really interesting, and I'd like to say that I would have had the same thought process as him, but I'm not sure if I would have if I'd have been in his position. But he had an interesting philosophy. He just said that the question would always come, like, do you let your son run and play and do all the things that normal kids would do? And again, I mean, it's a very different time back then for us than it was then. I mean, we didn't have treatment at home for until I was probably at least 10 years old. We didn't have treatment at home, and we just had to go to the hospital for every little thing. And so a little different environment than it is today, or a lot different environment. But nonetheless, it was like, and nothing was preventative. So even if you were getting treatment, it's always after a bleed had already fully metastasized. So you were in a real problem by the time you got treatment. But my dad had this philosophy. He said, my son is all boy. And he said, I'd rather his body be a little bit broken later on down the road than I would for his spirit as a man to not be broken.
That's what I'm talking about.
And that was deeply impactful even to me, because even as a little boy, I was able to go and say, you know what? Yeah, I need to express myself and I need to play. And, I had challenges with things like, I went to a small school and in Texas where I grew up, and the school I went to was, we'd go at recess and we'd play soccer. Well, I was like you. I love to run. I was actually really good at it. You can't tell now because, like my friend says, this body is built for comfort, not speed. But but back then I loved running, and I would just run. I could feel the wind in my face. I could just love running, and that was before my ankle was like really, really bad. But I had a bad target joint in my ankle. And I remember this one part where I was having ankle bleeds, just one after the other. And I'm probably, by this time, probably 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. But I would get picked first on the soccer team every time to be the goalie, because I was on crutches and I had the longest wingspan.
Right.
And so I was fortunate because I had a good group of kids who embraced me even in my state with crutches and things like that. But that was hard to overcome. As
I had mean kids in my school. They would tell me, like, how we would be on crutches one day, and then days later we're not. Like, oh, you just faking. You don't want to go to class, or you don't want to do this. And then, they say little mean stuff when they get mad at you. They call you cripple, and that was one of my pet peeves. That word right there got me sent to detention or out of school suspension, because I would go from 0 to 100 until my mama told me, she said, son, that don't define you. She said, people use stuff to just target you, try to, how does she have it? They would do it just to get a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, and when you react to it, that's you agreeing to what they said that you are.
Wow.
So it got to the point where when they would try to use that to trigger me, I would laugh and be like, whatever.
Yeah.
It didn't work no more.
Yeah.
But before that, I'll fire on them. I'm firing on them. Yeah.
That's good, because see, that's another lesson that we learn is it's learning how to manage your own responses.
Right.
How many other 10-year-olds or 8-year-olds or 12-year-olds are learning at that part of their life how to manage their own emotions and their trigger points,
Right.
And I can remember, so many times in my own life how that was just so frustrating. It's like, You know, I remember my parents talking about things like that too. It was just, hey, just because they don't understand doesn't mean it's not real for you. You
Right.
have to live your journey. They have to live theirs. And you can't let that get in the way of it. But it will come a stumbling block to you if you give in to that anger, if you get into that, if you give in to the bitterness that can be attached to that.
I used to, I remember this off subject a little bit, but, well, it's kind of on subject. I went to the regional science fair. I did a science project, and the name of it was Hemophilia, Why Me?
Mm.
And man, I showed my hypothesis and all that, and I showed pictures of myself infusing and all that. But I used to ask God that question all the time. I used to be like, man, why me? You know, out of all my cousins, you know, big as my family is, you know, why you pick me and my brother, you know, to just have this? Or why you, it didn't have to be my family. Why you didn't pick other family, another family?
Mm.
And one day, in the midst of me and my brother both was having a bleed that day. And we both was, because me and my brother, we're real close. People think we're twins. That's how close we are. And hemophilia really bonded us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was throwing myself a pity party that day saying, why me? And I got a voice said, why not you? What make you different?
Mm.
You know, and who are you to question me? You know, when I made you. I don't recall you being there when I created the heaven and earth. I don't recall asking you for your permission. So when he hit me with that, I humbled down. I was like, you know what? If he gave it to me, that means that I can. He said he'll never give us more than we can bear. So he obviously saw that I could handle it and I could bear it. That's why he allowed it. So why am I complaining? I had to suck it up at a young age, but I mean,
Yeah.
it sucks, but I mean, it is what it is.
I think sometimes people get caught up on the, you know, was it caused by God? I've seen a lot of people, you know, really blame God for, you know, that. And I think all of us have to wrestle with it. You know, some people have said there is no God because he couldn't be a loving God and do that.
Right.
I just, you know, it's hard because it does feel like in one sense, like why would this have to be this way? And in another sense, as I've gotten older, I've also, I always say this way, I have gained far more from hemophilia than what hemophilia has stolen from me.
Right. Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. There have been many losses.
Oh yeah. No
I have
doubt.
had some things that have been taken from my life and I've had to deal with pain that no one should have to deal with.
Right.
I've had to go through that, but so have tens of thousands of millions of other people.
Right.
And, you know, his verse says he's no respecter of persons. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I'm really, the fact that I'm alive today
Right.
is actually a miracle.
Right.
My life is sustained, but I'll take it a step further. The fact that I can have a positive outlook on life
Right.
in spite of all of what I've been through
Right.
is an even bigger miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have every reason to give up.
Oh yeah.
I
Trust
have
it.
every reason to throw in the towel.
Even now, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't have those days when the thought crossed my mind.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just know that I have touched so many people. I've seen like older people tell me, son, I draw from your strength. I see you with a smile on your face. And I watched your life. I know what you went through coming up. And to see you being productive and to see you enjoying life and having a good outlook on life and stuff, you know, that just strengthens me. And when you got an older person, way older, old enough to be your grandmother, talking about they look up to you, man, that's a plus. I mean,
It's humbling.
right, it is, you know, and like a lot of people would say, you know, what did you do for God to give you this, or who done something wrong in your family? Somebody done something for God, but I don't look at it like that, man. I look at, man, he gives it. what's that saying? He give his hardest battles to his strongest soldiers. And I think he gave this to us because he knew we could handle it. And the reason he didn't give it to the other people, because the righteous, just being honest, they'd probably be strung out on drugs or been and put a bullet in their head. He'd take a strong person. When I say strong, rooted and grounded, to have hemophilia, it takes that. And that's just being honest. And I know you can agree with me.
Absolutely.
Because there's been plenty of nights that when the devil has almost won. But, all praises to the Most High, he didn't.
Yeah.
And we're here.
That's true. And, I think that we're all on a journey. I've known people that have really struggled for a long time. They went for a lot of years without any sense of faith, and they really blamed it. I think it's only natural to want to blame somebody for the turmoil that you're going through.
Right.
But that doesn't make, just because you're finding blame there doesn't necessarily make all the other weight of truth untrue.
Right.
And I think embracing, faith as a part of it actually has been the very thing that's helped sustain me. I'm like you. I feel like faith has played a huge role in me being able to have a favorable outlook to my future. And I honestly, I don't know that I could have that if it had not been for my faith, because what I have experienced in the physical way has been hard enough that I'm like you. There's been so many, hundreds of times wanting to throw in the towel, and you just get to a place where something has to pick you up, and quite frankly, finding purpose in your pain, no matter what that purpose is, finding purpose in the pain, I think, is the only thing that really helps take us into the future, no matter how you slice it. I really believe that this is why you talked about mentoring earlier. This is why mentorship is such an important, critical role. I always encourage people to get involved in their chapter or get involved in their local outreach groups, get involved in the hemophilia community in some way, because that's actually a great way to give back, not just with your attendance. I think that's the low-hanging fruit that a lot of people point to, but it's really not that. It's actually your participation that matters. It's actually you sharing your story. It's you being vulnerable. We talk about that in mental health, like you being able to open up and say, I'm going to be vulnerable here for a minute and say, like, I had a bad day today or yesterday or the day before or last week. I really contemplated things that I don't want to admit that I contemplated.
Right.
It's in those moments when we get really honest with others in a safe space that all of a sudden we can start to actually work on those things and see, and just helping one person by sharing your story and being vulnerable, taking that risk, it gives you life. It gives you hope. It gives you the strength to be able to do it another time. It gives you the strength to hold out a little longer, because all of a sudden you see somebody that's suffering just as much as you are. And quite honestly, I've seen even people in the community that have not suffered as much as maybe you have, or maybe as much as I have physically, but mentally they've suffered so much. And so just sharing my story about how I've gotten through it gives somebody else hope. And sometimes you can be a placeholder of hope.
Right.
Just you being alive and present, period, actually says, well, if he can do it, I can too. And I'm sure you've had that experience with your brother and others where you're just like, man, if he can keep going, I am too.
Right. Yep. No doubt. Because like with my brother being wheelchair bound, like when I find myself having a bad day, and it pushes me to keep going. I'll be like, if he can keep going, he's in a wheelchair. And I'm getting around way better than he is, even though I'm on one crutch. But, like today, let's say if it's the day I'm throwing a pity party about being on a crutch, then it'll come in my mind, at least you're not in a wheelchair. And like if we going somewhere, it's funny how, like, I say the blind be leading the blind. Like if me and my brother go somewhere, I put him in the car, then put his wheelchair in the trunk, and then I had to put my crutch back there with his wheelchair. And I'm like, but we get it done. We help each other out, because I know. But it's just, if I could just get him on track with one thing, man, I think me and him would be.
Yeah. Now, has he struggled with inhibitors also? He's had a similar path. Right?
Yeah. And for some reason, he hit that point in his life at one time that he didn't think he had hemophilia anymore, and he stopped infusing. So that's where I'm at with him now, trying to get him to start back infusing and finding a product that works for him.
Yeah. It's so funny, man, how you talked about faith earlier, and there's a great verse where Jesus says he couldn't even do miracles in his own hometown. Sometimes the people that we love the most and the people we're trying to help the most, they won't accept it because they saw where we came from.
Man.
But at the end of the day, man, we are all a bunch of thick-headed guys that, that really don't like being told what to do.
Right.
And you got to learn it for yourself.
I admit I can be bullheaded sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm also a person that I reason,
Yeah.
If you come with some logic and it makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But
But you've had such a better outcome in so many years. Well, like you said, for instance, like, you've seen him really kind of end up in a spot where he's had more joint trouble, and you've seen you. And I think a lot of that sometimes is just having the optimism to say maybe there is something better, and you're going to keep trying until you find the better.
Right.
And that's hard to do. And sometimes our journey can really be impacted by the people we encounter. And I know you've thrown yourself into the community. You've spoken at all kind of events around and done a lot of involvement around the bleeding disorders community. But, I think sometimes being involved and getting connected and seeing that you have something to give, but it also gives you an opportunity to like learn a lot more. I think we really are limited by what we know, right? Or I should say, we're probably limited by what we don't know. And so, I think the thing is that if you get out and about and you get involved in the community around you, sometimes it gives you an opportunity to learn a lot more. And it's not about there being a one-size-fits-all treatment plan or one-size-fits-all drug. It's really about you continuing to try things until you find something that's working for you, right?
And so now, like with me, I want to get more involved because I admit over the years, after having several surgeries or whatever, I kind of been slack on the involvement that I used to be because like I was a busybody before all this.
Yeah.
But it's like now, it's like finding the motivation, like some days I'll be on fire. I'm ready to do it. Then some days that pain will have me like, but
Yeah.
I'm slowly getting back. And another thing is I guess the feeling of being wanted and needed, like once you feel like you're not needed, it's like you lose that sense of
Purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm back.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm so thrilled to see you back out in the community and being able to be out there to help folks because it's what we've talked about a few times. You brought it up, a great point about mentoring others, giving back to the community is so critical, but also sometimes just for us, just feeling wanted and needed,
Right.
That's really critical. And I'd like to say to you that you are needed.
Appreciate it, man.
And I appreciate what you bring to the community.
Man, I salute you too, man, because, hey, y'all name, man, it rings. I'm serious, dude, like, for real. A lot of people, they say good things about y'all, man.
Well, we're trying to do our part to just help in our little sliver of the universe.
And it's been times when I needed help, and, man, y'all, no hesitation through. And it's just... It's phenomenal, man, especially like, because, you see, like, not making light of other diseases or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, you don't hear too much about hemophilia, the way they pump other diseases up, like, you have a lot of different avenues for this disease, that disease. You hear people advocating for this disease, and then like when it comes to hemophilia, it's like it's just a little bit,
important. This is one of the reasons why we got to keep raising the flag of awareness, because it's not just about what we can do to elevate the disease itself, but it's also to talk about the problems. I've found that there's a lot of things, even from a policy point of view, that need to be addressed that we haven't gotten to yet. But we're a small group of people. When you really think about it in total, we're close to 10-12% of what the metric is for us to be labeled as a rare disease. We're not even 50% rare. We're 10 or 12%, on the high side of what a rare disease would be labeled. It takes roughly around 250,000 people in the U.S. to be diagnosed with a disorder to be considered rare. We're only 33,000, estimated to have hemophilia in the United States. And so from that point of view, we're really small in the grand scheme of things. We're not quite an orphan disease. We're really still, we're very rare.
Right.
And so that's why so many people can live their whole lives without meeting another hemophilia patient. We meet people all the time throughout the whole country that they really will never meet another hemophilia patient because they live in a rural community or they live in an area that they don't see a lot of folks. And so we always encourage people, like, anytime you get a chance to hang out with another hemophiliac like we have today, you need to do that because, whether it's, like I said, it might be a higher occurrence of lightning striking than it would be for you and I to be in the same room. And so if you're listening today, you've watched this podcast, this conversation, you thought, man, this is, I wish that I could have these types of conversations. I know I would encourage you to be able to get involved. We got some great events coming up at Hope, but there's plenty of events with your local chapter and other national organizations that have opportunities for you to get connected, inhibitor summits, all types of things, blood brothers. There's some great things going on. But please make yourself available to try to get involved in some way to meet other people living with the same bleeding disorder that you have, because it's so critical to your overall health. But Rodney, thank you so much for joining us for the Hope Podcast today. It's been a fantastic pleasure to be able to connect like this and be able to talk and share stories.
And thank you, Jonathan, for always, man, being phenomenal doing what you do, and with the whole hope and everything, because like you say what the name of it is. I mean, you actually give us hope, because where would we be if it didn't have anybody that actually experienced the blood disorder? It would be somebody that will be guessing and assuming they knew, but but when it's actually a person that has lived it and is living it, it makes a difference. And I can see the passion and it's real.
Mm-hmm.
It's real.
Appreciate that.
And man, I thank God for putting it on your heart, and I pray that he continues to bless you and your family, that y'all will have life and more abundantly.
Thank you.
To the crew over there, hey, same thing, man. Peace and blessings to y'all, man.
That's good. Yeah, we have a whole slew of people behind the scenes that make all this magic happen.
Right.
And it's a labor of love, that's for sure. We really do love what we do, and we consider it an honor and privilege really to be able to do all of these things, whether it be the events to connect with people or to be able to do a podcast conversation like this. And I want to say a big thank you to Kedrion as well for being our episode sponsor. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, if you found value in this session and in others, please make sure that you like and subscribe this, share this with your friends, send it to somebody, send it to Rodney's brother. He needs some encouragement too. So
Hey, I need to make sure.
But it's been great to hang out and spend time with you as well as Rodney today. And we want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen in and to be a part of the Hope Podcast. So thanks so much, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.